Well, welcome everybody. Thank you for taking a little time to join us on the program today. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. My name is Dave Cohen. I'm a director here at Mina Partners, and I'm really pleased that you've decided to spend a little time with us, either live on the program or if you're watching this as a recording. We've got a great conversation in store for you today. We're going to get started with that conversation in just a minute, but before we do, a few quick details. The interface here, if you're listening live, provides for you to pop in questions and comments. So we encourage those throughout the program. We'll be keeping an eye on that stream, and if anything pops up, we will try to bring it into the conversation as we will. And so please keep those going. Also, as I mentioned, if you are listening to this live, we are going to be providing a recording that will be posted shortly after we conclude the program. So with that, I would like to introduce today's guest. George Jones is DPO and Head of Privacy Engagement at ZoomInfo, which is, as many of you know, a leading provider of B2B business contact information. George and I have been discussing this topic for some time now. We started chatting about it at a privacy professionals meeting in Boston a while back there, and so decided to turn it into a conversation that we could share with all of you. George is recently been relocated to Boston here from the UK. George, I hope that transition is going well for you. Even here, I'm up in the coast of Maine, so I'm also here in New England. It's weather starting to turn cold. I hope that's been all right.
It's not been too bad so far. I'm looking forward to some real snow for the first time in my life.
Yeah, terrific. We'll have to get you up into the mountains to do some skiing. George, as I mentioned just a moment ago, your current title is DPO and Head of Privacy Engagement. Can you tell us a little bit about what that post entails and perhaps how you got there and previous roles that led you to this position?
Sure, yeah, I've been at ZoomInfo a little over 2 years now, so it's been a fair shift here in terms of this company. So I'm really enjoying the role. I've taken on the DPO role very recently, actually, only the past few months. But the privacy engagement role is a really interesting one, right? It's not a job title that we see very often across
A
the
little
industry.
unusual, actually. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's very unique. I think it really does help sort of bridge the gap between sales and what a traditional privacy team would do. ZoomInfo's whole game is selling data, right? And naturally, we're going to get a lot of questions around privacy, security, risk, just based on the nature of our business.
Mm.
So building that path and a path for collaboration between our traditional sales teams here and then the really hard work that the traditional privacy, security, legal, and risk teams do was really important. And it really helps to build up that relationship with the sales org, gain the respect of the CRO and senior leadership, and really helps us sort of push our internal privacy message a lot further than we would have been able to.
Yeah, fantastic. And that word engagement is just such a critical word. I actually really love it. And you and I were chatting just before going live on the program here about how you've really made it clear since you've been in this role that you want your customers to contact you with questions and to challenge you and to really ask questions and encourage that, so that the privacy program and the controls and the protections are all very dynamic, especially as the company evolves, products and services evolves. And I think we're going to get into that in a little bit later in the discussion here. But let me kind of set the context for this conversation. And it really started off with this idea that I think it's fair to say, and I've been in privacy now for about 15 years, that typically in most organizations, the role of the privacy officer, the privacy department, as you will, is looked at as a necessary cost center to keep the company in compliance with applicable privacy laws that it falls into the scope of, and that it is not something that is a value add or a revenue generator for the business. But where this whole topic got started was you kind of challenged that notion and said that over there at ZoomInfo, you actually believe and can prove, with metrics and other demonstrations that the robust nature of the privacy and compliance and AI compliance program over there at ZoomInfo is something that actually helps the business, aids the business, that there's metrics to support that, increases revenue and increases sales with your customers. So that's why we're here today to talk a little bit about that. So can you just kind of dig into that a little bit and kind of expand on what makes you make those claims, George, and how those work within the company?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at our industry as a whole, just the data provider industry, right, in the B2B space specifically, there's very little transparency into the actual practices of organizations like ZoomInfo and others who collect business contact data. And we didn't like that motion, right? We wanted to foster a bit more of an open culture. And that's why our privacy team got to the point where it is now, right? We're a very well-resourced team. We probably have one of the largest privacy teams in our space, and a very well-educated and well-experienced team as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think the problem was when I first joined 2 years ago, I was working on sales calls all the time, right? So I'd join calls with sales teams trying to pitch ZoomInfo's products. And there would always be a lot of hesitation around methods of data collection, lawful basis under GDPR. How can we use data that's been gathered by a third party, right? These real fundamental questions that come to our minds as privacy professionals all the time when you talk about purchase data.
Mm-hmm.
And we realized that ZoomInfo is probably leaving a lot of revenue on the table because of these conversations were not navigated well, right? And that's what we tried to change. We built up sales talk tracks. We built up like a network of support so sales teams could come and get the support of the privacy team directly. And then when that sort of matured and started building, we decided to try and track metrics, right? So what was the size of the deals that we were across in a given month? How much revenue did we impact directly as a team?
Mm-hmm.
Were there any deals that were on the table that, without going through a privacy review and a very comprehensive program with privacy teams on both sides, would the deal have even moved forward, right? So we track things like that. Are there any deals that literally were won because we jumped over the privacy hurdle quicker than some of our competitors could have?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer is yes, quite a lot, actually, and fairly often. We did an ROI sort of investigation for our board as well, and pitched these results. And they were very impressed and sort of shocked at the fact that we could turn this into a revenue generation engine here.
Mm-hmm.
The team on the privacy support side was just 2 people. It was me and my colleague Sean, who is superb at these calls as well.
Mm-hmm.
And we would just like roll in. Simon McDougall, my chief compliance officer and privacy lead here at ZoomInfo, described us as a SWAT team, right? We would roll in, solve some problems and answer some questions, and then roll out, and that's it. And then the deal can move forward. So yeah, it was a tough challenge to build this, but it's really rewarding now that it's up and running. And our sales teams come to us all the time. It's very proactive.
Well, look, that's fantastic, and I'm sure that's the envy of a lot of people who are listening to this program right now, to have the department be viewed as an asset and a sales enabler and a business enabler rather than kind of a necessary friction on the company. Now, obviously, George, to start, you have to have an actual robust privacy program in place. And if you're going to do all these things that you're saying, being transparent, being really clear with the privacy notice, being able to demonstrate that you're in compliance where you need to be, you need to have done all that work. But really, that ability to be once that foundational work is done and is upkept so that it's always current, that transparency and that trust is something that I can really, people have been talking about for a long time, that can be a differentiator in the marketplace. So one of the things that you and I were talking about again before the program, as we're getting ready for this, is it's a very dynamic environment. I mean, this is essentially software sales, right? So things are constantly changing and they're moving rapidly. So it's one thing to for a snapshot in time to be able to be transparent and demonstrate these things. But George, I'm sure over at Zoom Info, you're constantly developing new products, trying to keep up with the marketplace, and new services, new products. How do you get the other business units within the company to make sure that they're reporting to you, that you're hearing about these new developments and you're getting ahead of the curve and building in the privacy controls, as opposed to finding out things before things are just about to go out the door? This is a perennial question for privacy professionals. How do I get to be embedded in the R&D section of the business so that I can get privacy controls built in early?
I think there's two sides to this that I find really interesting. I think the first one is your own privacy team, and I'm going to say privacy legal here at Zoom Info because we're all one group, needs to be aligned first and foremost, right? You need to have roles and responsibilities outlined within your own privacy team. That's easy when you're a small team of 2 or 3 people, but in a team like ours where there's 20 people working on privacy here at Zoom Info, making sure those roles and responsibilities are ironed out and everybody knows their internal role and escalation paths and
Yes.
sort of underlying policy that we're all working from is really essential. That's the first bit, and that's probably what most people understand and can get a grip of quite easily. I think the second part of this is building up like a champions network for yourself internally. Like we talk champions networks all the time in privacy, right? People like to build these networks. It doesn't have to be a formal program, but it's about identifying who you can trust within the product and engineering organization, like who you know will listen to your advice and guidance, who will bring you new product features. We have regular meetings here with different product leaders where they will talk us through some of the innovation that they're looking to make. And it's a chance for us to ask questions and then they can provide us with documentation to help with reviews, right? So it's about being open. Nobody comes to us and our first thing is give me the documentation, right? That's not the way we operate here within Zoom Info. Certainly not the way I work. We would have a conversation. We would talk through a feature, see if there's any new uses of data, if there's any like data acquisition that's going on, or anything that we see as being like a high risk to us, right? And that would trigger a more formal process. But it's just being open and being responsive is the key. I think we're really lucky here at Zoom Info in the fact that we're seen as quite a pragmatic team, right? Our engineers know that we're responsive. And we have a lot of buy-in from senior leadership, from our board to our CEO. Like everybody understands the hard work that we do here and understands the importance of a robust privacy program for a data company. So yeah, it's just fostering that culture internally is what's a very hard task, as we know, Dave, but it can be rewarding.
I'd like to dig into that a little bit more, George. And there are two. I'll give you a choice to dig into it from two different aspects, and maybe we can cover both. One is I'm really curious about the culture that you've built up there. Is it more of a carrot or a stick in the sense that, is it so idealistic that folks actually understand that in order for the company to be successful, you're going to have robust privacy and security controls for the data flows that you have internally, and so that people really understand that, and they do go to you because they want to make sure that the products before they go out the door have the proper, that you're using data in a proper way. Or is there some kind of an internal policy that mandates that before a product gets to a certain stage in development, maybe between concept and big early stages of implementation, it has to go through your office? Is that formalized, or is that more of a cultural thing that people just know that they should go to you and check in early?
Definitely a cultural thing, and it actually goes a step deeper in the fact that the way that we think here at Zoom Info is always in like the customer voice, right? Like our chief data officer is often on calls with customers talking through the way that we collect our data and how things work. Our chief product officer will go and talk to customers to get real world feedback. Our CEO is very active in talking to customers and getting feedback online and just going to talk to people to understand the problems they have to see if we can build a product to solve those problems. So it's just that open culture here, and the fact that we're willing to listen to feedback from customers and internally is really important. And I think it's a unique culture and not one that I'm going to say is easy to form, but it's definitely what we have here, and it really helps us work effectively.
Well, you've been in the field for a little while, George. So let me kind of take the second part of the question that I was kind of wondering about here, which is for folks that are out in the audience listening to this right now that aren't so lucky as to have this open culture. How what ideas might and you know I know that you're really active in the circuit as I am out at conferences talking to other privacy professionals all over the world in all different sectors and companies small and large. How might you recommend somebody who doesn't have the benefit of operating in such a culture start to build that culture? And also, can you talk a little bit more about ways to build that buy-in from above? Again, you're very lucky, or you're smart in that you chose to work for a company that has that buy-in from upper leadership, and not every company gets to have Simon McDougall and that leadership role there to be a real advocate and champion. So if people don't have that culture currently, what are some steps you think that you might recommend that they take to try to make their job a little bit easier and to build that buy-in within the culture?
Yeah, I think you just need to work as hard as you can to remove silos, right? Like we're traditionally very stuck in our compliance window, right? We know compliance, we know it well. I think you need to get out of your comfort zone and learn the other aspects of the business. Go and spend some time with your sales teams, go and spend some time with your engineers and see how they operate. And then that will help you build a program that's tailored to their needs, right? That's what we need to think. Yes, we're here to reduce risk, we're here to protect the business, but you need to be a good business partner first and foremost. So
Mhm.
understanding how the business operates, breaking down those walls between departments, fostering this culture of collaboration, I think is the most important step to
Yeah.
take to then build that open culture.
Mhm. We hear this again and again at the many sessions we've been to over the years at lots of different events, which is building relationships. And one of the best things I heard at a session, I think it might have been an IAPP conference many years ago, but it's always stuck with me, is you're going to have a critical relationship, of course, with, like, for instance, IT security. And so before you go to them straight off and ask for things and demand time that of them that you need for your privacy compliance activities, see what they need. How can we help you? Was there anything that you guys could use from our team? And just flipping that on its head and trying to start and nurture these relationships by offering support. It may feel like a cost to your department and that you've got your folks working on somebody else's work. However, if you do that and show and demonstrate that you're willing to go out and help them with their initiatives, when it comes time for you to need something from them, they're going to be much more willing and much more likely to come back. And then that's just going to foster that back and forth. Would you agree with that?
100%. And I can give you an example from within Zoom Info of how that helps as well. So our sales teams are going out and selling Zoom Info directly to customers quite often. We have hundreds of account executives here whose whole job is just selling our product.
Mm-hmm.
There's times where they will be selling a deal and there'll be some resistance from privacy, but there's no like direct questions, right? So there's nothing for them to bring to me and my team to say, oh, we need you to answer this to help the deal move forward. But sometimes they can recognize that there's a bit of hesitation and trepidation around purchasing data. So what they'll do is they'll contact me and say, oh, it would be really great if you could reach out to this person at this company and say, hi, I'm the DPO. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer it. Like, be proactive, be
Yeah.
willing to help them. And I can't tell you how effective that is as a sales.
I can only imagine. It's very effective. Yeah.
I, especially towards the end of the month, I will get just Slack message after Slack message asking for me to do some proactive outreach, or asking me if I know somebody at a certain company, right? Or if I know anybody in the privacy office over here, just to
Mhm.
see if we can like build another bridge. That's what sales is, right? It's building bridges into organizations.
Mhm.
And I think our team here have really cracked the code where privacy can really help win deals. If the
Mhm.
privacy office is already aware of Zoom Info when the contract comes across the table, and they know that I work there and we've had a chat at a conference in the past or something like
Mhm.
that, there's going to be far less resistance than if it's just this random data provider that they know nothing about and there's no existing relationship. So yeah, I think that's my like sort of insight into how we work that here. Just give back a little bit and it will win them some deals, and then they'll come to you if they ever have problems, right? They won't hide issues. They won't sort of turn their back on if somebody asks privacy questions. They won't sweep it under the rug. They'll come and get us to answer and support. I think that's like one example I can give you that really shows the power of like giving back.
That makes so much sense, George. And actually, just even as you were saying that, I was thinking about multiple benefits that flow out of that action. And it's time and effort on your part. I mean, you need to hear that. You need to make those calls. You need to take time out of your day to do that. But what do you get back? You get back that the first of all, you may close that deal and you may get that contract and have those folks be able to partner with those folks and provide services for them. But even more than that, by engaging them, you can hear what are your concerns. And especially if you hear those concerns, well, let me address those. We've got those taken care of here. Let me show you exactly what we do to make sure that we can allay those fears. So I can just think that just that time pays for itself in spades.
Yeah, and it definitely shows the value of conferences as well. I know we've had this conversation in the past,
Mm-hmm.
but for a lot of us as privacy pros, we go to these conferences to learn.
Mm-hmm.
My mindset has shifted over the past couple of years, and I now go to network, right? I go
Mm-hmm.
to bump into customers, bump into people in the industry, just build as many connections as I can, because who knows, me talking to you now, Dave, down the
Mm-hmm.
line, it might help if there's a deal between Zoom Info and Minor or a company you work at in the future or something, that the resistance is a lot lower because we have a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's one thing I try and, especially to other people within the privacy team here at Zoom Info, I try and push and say, look, let's go and build these relationships. And we did a big program when we went to GPS in DC last year of
Mm-hmm.
just going out and trying to talk to as many customers as we can, because that direct feedback really helps us build our program and make sure we're focusing on the right things that our
Yeah.
customers actually care about, right? And that's
Yeah.
so important.
It's ear on the ground, and it's getting to know that when you can tell when you're talking to a customer that really cares and can be trusted and is going to follow through and is going to take care of things and wants to do the right thing and wants to build quality products and quality relationships. So I couldn't agree more with that. I think we should probably spend a few more minutes here on this buy-in from above, George. Let's talk a little bit about that. Again, not every company is lucky enough to have Simon McDougall as part of the leadership team, but if that's not the case, what advice might you have to try to create that environment to get buy-in for the work of the privacy office?
Yeah, I think we spoke about the voice of the customer a bit earlier, and I can't understate the importance of that. If you change your narrative into a narrative that will be understood by the exec that you're going to talk to, you're
Mm-hmm.
more likely to be speaking the same language, right? If it's the CRO, you want to be talking about how the change you want to make within your privacy program will impact revenue. If it's the CEO, it's all about growth, right? How do you help grow the company? How do you scale your program with the products that you're building?
Yep.
If it's your CTO or chief product officer or someone of that narrative, it's how do you become the best partner to their teams when they're building these products?
Mm-hmm.
Putting yourself in the shoes of the exec that you're trying to approach and grow with is really important. I
Mm-hmm.
think having good escalation paths within your team as well. So I report to our associate general counsel and then into the general counsel and then up to our CEO, right? That's my reporting path.
Mm-hmm.
Having good relationships at every step really helps there. So I have a
Mm-hmm.
great relationship with my direct manager. I have a great relationship with our general counsel. I have a superb relationship with our CEO. Just because I go out and I make sure I'm known to these people, right? I make
Mm-hmm.
sure that the projects I'm working on are known. I make sure that I'm aligning my goals with the goals of my leaders and the leadership of the organization. And then putting it in the tone of the company is really important. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
it can be especially hard if you've come from an organization in regulated industry and then you go to work for a tech company. You really do have to make a mindset shift, right? You have to change your own narrative and the way that you think about approaching these problems to fit the company goals. And I think that's something that not many privacy pros do when they change company, right? They stick with what they know. If you've worked in regulated industry your whole career, that's the way you're going to approach things. It's going to be all policy and all like traditional audit and things like this. If
Right.
you've worked in tech, it's going to be a bit more proactive and a bit more agile. That doesn't work for all organizations. So being able to shift yourself and adapt to the management style that you're reporting into is really important.
That makes a lot of sense. And as you were talking about developing relationships all along the chain, not just with the person that you report to directly, you're going to be able to then understand what their concerns are, what they care about, what are their priorities. and be able to respond to them, and also hopefully having opportunities to show them the good work that your team is doing and highlight that to build up that trust and let them know that you are that you do have a robust program on the ground there. Well, George, we only have a few minutes left in the program here, and we would be remiss to not get into the topic of the day or the year or the last couple of years here, and that is AI governance. And so, as I was on the ZoomInfo website looking around in preparation for this program, I noticed there's some pretty amazing new AI tools that ZoomInfo employs. So, can you talk a little bit about how AI governance was allocated within ZoomInfo? Is that the responsibility of your office or other offices? Is it shared? And also, if you could kind of talk a little bit about how were those AI governance responsibilities kind of layered onto existing privacy governance policies and procedures, or were they created afresh?
Yeah, I think AI governance is a really tough challenge because you can't just delegate it to one team and expect it to work, right? Like, yes, we will manage the policy side of this, we will manage the governance program, we will build a framework, but we still need the technical teams and the product teams to buy into this and understand the importance of governance. So I don't think it's a one department fix for AI governance, same as privacy isn't, right? Yeah, we have our privacy office, but we still need those teams to care about privacy. Otherwise, what we do is pointless. So
Right.
I think we take that same approach. And yes, the governance side of it does definitely sit with us. Um, I did my AIGP training and passed my exam not too long ago, which was good fun.
Mhm.
It's a good course. I'm looking forward to seeing the second iteration of that from the IAPP early next year. I think is a good change.
Mhm.
But yeah, within legal and compliance here, we've picked up the responsibility. We use the NIST framework to build our own AI governance framework internally, which works really well. That's how we have sort of aligned ourselves based on those principles of NIST. Works great for us, sort of loosely aligned with privacy principles anyway. So quite an easy adjustment for us. Yeah, it works well. We have an AI product, so we get a lot of AI governance questions. So it's all about building out one internal documentation and FAQs to make sure that our sales teams, product teams, engineering teams understood the importance of AI governance and then
Mhm.
applying that to the products that we're building, right? So we have specific documentation for our AI products. And then we've built out a customer trust center as well that covers AI governance and the approach we take. We've got some certifications governing AI as well. So we really are just trying to do as much as we can to build some trust around it.
Fantastic. So, George, in our closing minutes here, seeing as how we're in December, we're a lot of us are about to head off into the holidays. We're closing out the 2024 year here in the United States. We've got a big change in administration happening in the early part of 2025 that will obviously have some consequences, ramifications for the FTC and the regulatory environment in general. What's kind of on your desk and right now, and kind of where's your mind at in terms of what 2025 may like in terms of regulatory priorities, and kind of what are you seeing coming down for the first part of 2025?
I mean, my eyes at the moment are on California with this automated decision making guidelines that they have and new bills. So I think state laws are going to become more prominent now, right? And we know this. There's definitely not going to be a federal privacy law in the next 4 years. I'm pretty sure all of us are confident of that. So keeping
Mhm.
an eye on the states and just maintaining relationships with those offices is really important for us. And then international as well, right? With the AI Act in Europe and yeah, the whole web of DMA, DSA, and all of these other alphabet soup that we have at the moment. Just keeping
Yeah.
an eye on that and monitoring both domestic and international changes is really important. We're
Mhm.
super lucky here. We have a government and regulatory affairs team at ZoomInfo who keep an eye on emerging privacy, AI, and other loosely sort of related laws for us, as well as conducting some like lobbying activity and stuff like that as well. So luckily for me, I just get a nice handy readout from those teams and
Yeah.
don't have
It's
to
great
keep
to have those teams out there on the hill, and yeah.
for sure. Yeah, I don't have to keep too close of an eye on it myself.
Mhm.
But just making sure we take those new laws and the requirements of those new laws and action them appropriately, and make sure that our teams understand that. There was a big push for, like, have you heard of Daniel's Law, the New Jersey law
Yes.
for judges and other protected persons?
Yeah.
As a data company, that affected us quite a lot, as you can imagine, and there's
Yeah.
quite hefty, like, private right of actions and things involved with those. So making sure that we have fulfillment processes that can respect those requests in the timeframes,
Mm-hmm.
and building, like, we built a expedited queue for any protected person to be
Mm-hmm.
opted out of our platform. So keeping an eye on bills like that have a real world, like, direct impact on our business is super important.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, George. I agree with you in terms of your prognostication about the potential for a federal bill, but state bills, I imagine we're going to see more state privacy bills, and we've already seen some state AI governance bills as well.
Yeah.
So I imagine those will proliferate as well. So both figuring out ways to be efficient and comply with maybe multiple state privacy requirements at the same time, but also paying attention to the nuances and the unique requirements that those call for. So, well, we're just at the bottom of the hour here. So thanks so much, George, for taking some time out of your busy day. Great conversation, really fun talking to you. Wish you the best for the end of the year and the holidays and into the new year. And maybe we'll have to do a part 2 of this conversation sometime in 2025. So thanks again for your time today. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. It's been great fun.
All right. And thank you all for joining us today. We really appreciate it. And we'll see you on the next edition. Happy holidays, all.